In the decade after Mexico's drug war splintered the old order, a new kind of criminal empire quietly took shape. One built not just on violence, but on logistics, recruitment, and economic adaptation. Former cartel specialists, pushed out by chaos and kingpin arrests, were absorbed into modular cells that would soon coordinate the movement of billions of dollars in synthetic drugs worldwide. This network didn't just survive waves of crackdowns, it grew stronger, faster, and harder to contain. The real question is, what happens when the state faces a system designed to outpace every attempt to stop it? As Mexico's old criminal hierarchies fractured in the early 2010s, a new workforce began to circulate through the shadows. Arrests and assassinations shattered established cartels, leaving hundreds of experienced operatives, fighters, logisticians, and financial handlers suddenly without a banner. These were not street-level recruits. Many had managed supply chains, coordinated cross-border shipments, or enforced discipline in contested territories. Their skills were forged in the chaos of the Beltran Leyva collapse, the Sinaloa infighting, and the splintering of the Zetas. Amid the uncertainty, recruiters dangled promises of high pay, personal security, and a chance at authority. Displaced specialists found new purpose as CJNG offered not just a job, but a structure that valued their expertise. The cartel's growth was fueled by this influx of talent. Each wave of fragmentation, every kingpin arrest, and every internal war pushed more veteran operatives into the market. CJNG's leadership moved quickly to absorb them, integrating knowledge that had once belonged to rivals. This was the supply side of expansion, a steady stream of professionals, each bringing networks, tactics, and local intelligence ready to be woven into a system designed to outlast the next round of crackdowns. Inside CJNG, the architecture of power looks nothing like the rigid pyramids of old. The organization is built around a system of modular plaza cells, each one anchored to a specific city, corridor, or industrial zone. Plaza commanders run these cells with a surprising degree of autonomy, managing their own recruitment, finances, and enforcement while answering to regional logistics coordinators. This structure is designed for resilience. If a commander is arrested or killed, a replacement steps in within hours, and the cell resumes operations with minimal disruption. Communication between cells is intentionally limited. Orders travel through encrypted messages and face-to-face meetings, reducing the risk that a single breach could unravel the wider network. Local financing remains under each cell's control, allowing plaza commanders to pay salaries, bribe officials, and fund logistics without waiting for approval from above. Regional coordinators oversee supply routes and major financial flows, but day-to-day decisions stay close to the ground. This decentralized approach allows the cartel to scale quickly. Cells can be replicated or dissolved as needed, expanding into new markets or withdrawing from areas under pressure. The result is an organization that can absorb shocks, reroute supply chains, and adapt to changing threats, all without sacrificing operational discipline or profitability. Freight moves through Western Mexico with a precision that rivals any legitimate logistics company. At the core of this system are the ports, Manzanillo and Puerto Vallarta, where containers from Asia and South America enter under the watch of trusted coordinators. These are not random shipments. Customs officials, often on the payroll, flag certain containers for special handling. Shipping companies pay security fees, sometimes up to $120,000 per vessel, to guarantee their cargo travels without interference. Trucks are loaded at ghost docks, appearing as ordinary freight, but moving under a shield of informal immunity. From the Pacific, the Guadalajara to Mexico City corridor acts as a protected artery. Toll booth operators, bribed for real-time updates, signal which routes are clear. Armed patrols enforce order along stretches of highway, deterring both rivals and unwanted police checkpoints. In some cases, entire lanes are designated as off-limits to outside interference, a de facto no-conflict zone where only authorized convoys pass. Rail yards and oil pipelines, too, become covert channels, with containers swapped mid-journey and sealed drums of cash or chemicals, pumped through pipeline sections during low traffic hours. Behind each movement is a logistics coordinator, managing schedules, payments, and contingencies. These coordinators synchronize dozens of shipments at once, rerouting trucks at a moment's notice if a checkpoint appears or a rival group threatens the corridor. The result is a network where geography and organization merge, turning ports and highways into the backbone of a criminal supply chain. This is not just about moving drugs. It is about controlling the very flow of goods, information, and money across entire regions. Synthetic drugs changed the math of organized crime in Mexico. For CJNG, the leap from plant-based narcotics to lab-produced fentanyl and methamphetamine was not just about new products. It was about scale and control. Traditional trafficking relied on vast fields and risky border crossings. Synthetic production, by contrast, could be hidden in warehouses or remote ranches, operating year-round, immune to droughts or crop failures. By 2024, intelligence estimates counted over 40 active meth labs and a dozen fentanyl labs under CJNG's command, concentrated in the Bajío region and western states like Jalisco and Colima. The real engine behind these operations was a cadre of lab chiefs and chemists, some recruited from university programs, others brought in from rival groups. Their task was to turn precursor chemicals, sourced in bulk from China and South Korea, into massive quantities of high-purity product. Precursor shipments arrived through Pacific ports, often disguised as legitimate cargo, with customs officials bribed to look the other way. Profits dwarfed anything possible with cocaine or heroin. By 2025, synthetic drug revenues for CJNG were estimated at roughly $5 billion a year, with much of it funneled through shell companies, cryptocurrency mixers, and offshore accounts. This financial power allowed the cartel to expand rapidly, invest in new labs, and weather crackdowns that would have crippled less diversified groups. The move into synthetics also transformed the cartel's resilience. When a lab was raided, equipment and personnel could be relocated within days, and production resumed with barely a pause. For CJNG, the synthetic economy was more than a revenue stream. It was a foundation for global reach and operational adaptability. In 2020, Mexican security forces launched a series of coordinated operations targeting CJNG's synthetic drug infrastructure. Army units and federal police swept through the Bajío and western states, raiding industrial-scale labs hidden in rural compounds and urban warehouses. In a single month, authorities seized more than 15 tons of precursor chemicals in Jalisco and Colima, along with enough finished methamphetamine to supply export routes for weeks. These raids were not isolated events. Joint task forces, sometimes backed by United States intelligence, dismantled shipping hubs, intercepted chemical shipments at Manzanillo, and froze assets linked to shell companies suspected of laundering cartel profits. The scale of enforcement grew with each operation. Hundreds of soldiers were deployed. Armored vehicles blocked highways. Helicopters circled suspected lab sites. Official statements boasted record seizures, a 23-ton chemical bust at Manzanillo in August, dozens of clandestine labs dismantled in a matter of weeks, and millions in cartel cash confiscated. Yet, for every high-profile bust, new labs surfaced elsewhere, and supply lines continued to operate. Enforcement actions set off a cycle of confrontation, forcing CJNG to adapt its logistics, relocate production, and test the limits of state capacity. The confrontation was no longer just about territory or kingpins, but about disrupting a network designed to absorb shocks and reroute itself under pressure. CJNG's resilience is engineered into every layer of its operations. Cyber units rotate encrypted chat groups every 48 hours, limiting exposure if a device is seized or a member flips. Logistics coordinators receive real-time updates from these digital cells, allowing them to reroute entire freight shipments within minutes if authorities close in on a corridor. The result is a network that absorbs shocks and adapts on the fly. It is an organization where no single breach can collapse the system. Alongside logistics, CJNG invests heavily in reputation management. Teams of media specialists produce propaganda clips and push them quickly across social platforms and encrypted channels. These videos show convoys, military drills, or statements from masked commanders, and they are designed to project an image of omnipresence and control. The speed of these releases is deliberate. Within hours of a raid or a clash, a new clip circulates, reframing the narrative and signaling that business continues as usual. Legal teams file lawsuits against officials, buying time and muddying investigations. Meanwhile, cyber operatives monitor law enforcement chatter and feed intelligence back to plaza commanders. This constant cycle of adaptation, rotating codes, shifting routes, and controlling the narrative lets CJNG negate the impact of even the most aggressive crackdowns. The network's true strength lies not in any single fortress or kingpin, but in its ability to reconfigure itself faster than the state can respond. Networks like CJNG thrive by outpacing state responses, turning logistics and global supply chains into instruments of power. As synthetic profits soar and adaptation accelerates, the question is no longer who controls territory, but who controls the future. The race to catch up is far from over.